super important, but we all know how tough these are in an increasingly complex, polarized world. So my name is Peter Kopper. I'm the adaptation lead within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands. For us, agriculture, climate adaptation, private sector engagement are key to our foreign policy and also in our climate diplomacy efforts and our international climate efforts. So this is a really exciting event that I'm keen to provide to you. So as we gather here, it's critical the need for global collaboration and innovative solutions to create a sustainable and inclusive future. I'm hopeful that sustainable food systems will feature for the first time in the GGA text. I don't know if any of you are at all interested in some of these very harsh legal documents, but the GGA is the Global Goal on Adaptation, and that's basically a very big pillar of the negotiations. And I think sustainable food systems, I'm hopeful that we will reach an agreement on it, and that at least there's some wording on that, and which would be the first time yet. For me, agriculture is not just a sector, it's a cornerstone of our global community. Yet farmers, especially those in emerging markets, face numerous challenges from volatile weather patterns to economic uncertainties. Today, we'll explore how we can create financial inclusive value chains that empower farmers and address climate simultaneously. Financial inclusion is not a buzzword. It should not be a buzzword. It's a powerful tool for empowerment. Access to financial services allow farmers to invest in modern technologies, improve agricultural practices, and build resilience against climate-induced risks. It's imperative that we bridge the financial gap, ensuring that every farmer, regardless of their location or skill, including also other parts of our kingdom, has access to the tools and resources needed to thrive. We should keep a close eye on the negotiations, and I think there are some good improvements made, but we still have a lot to go. Agreements on climate financing, technology transfer, and adaptation strategies are crucial elements that will directly impact farmers. The success of the negotiations will pave the way for more equitable and sustainable agricultural landscapes. Climate change is no longer a distant threat, as we all know. It's a stark reality for many of us, and particularly for farmers. Climate-smart agricultural practices are not an option, it's a necessity. And by integrating sustainable practices, precision farming, and agroecological approaches, we can not only mitigate the impacts of climate change, but also ensure long-term viability of the sector as such. In our pursuit of financial inclusion and building resilience against climate change, technology emerges as a powerful ally. Digital platforms, blockchain, and precision farmer agriculture technologies can revolutionize the way we approach farming. These innovations not only enhance productivity, but also provide transparency, a critical aspect of building trust and attracting investment. However, big investments and smallholder farmers generally are not a good match. High-tech options are very expensive and affordable for small-scale farmers, and I would be keen to hear the view of the panelists on how to bridge that gap also. The journey towards financially inclusive value chains requires collaborative efforts, as we know. Governments, private sector enterprises, NGOs, and local communities must come together to create an ecosystem that fosters sustainable agriculture. Public-private partnerships can unlock resources, expertise, and innovative solutions that propel farmers towards prosperity while safeguarding our environment. I think, I have to commend FMO and also the other partners. We have the Dutch Fund for Climate and Development, which is such an innovative partnership between multiple stakeholders, and you mentioned your collaboration with Allianz on that regard as well. I think that's encouraging. We need more of that. We need more tools. We need to really go beyond our comfort zone in this regard. In conclusion, as we navigate these challenges of financially inclusive value chains, let us not forget the hands that feed us. It's the farmers. By creating financially inclusive value chains, we not only empower farmers economically, but also fortify our collective efforts in addressing climate change. So regardless of what comes out of this COP, my hope, but also my expectation, is that public and private stakeholders, including the ones featured here, such as the Rabobank, FMO, the Export Trading Group, and others, will put in their full weight to design innovative financial solutions with and for local partners that ensure sustainable and financial inclusive value chains. Thank you, and I very much look forward to our discussion.
Thank you very much, Peter, for that. Then let's move on to introducing the panel. And I'm thinking maybe it's good to start with one panel member who's online. And that's from KTDA, the Kenyan Tea Cooperative, representing 600,000 farmers. Talking about scale, I think that is quite a scale, although there are 500 million farmers, but at least this is a very large cooperation. Just looking at technology, is it possible to get online? Yes. Hi, Sudi. Thank you for joining us. I don't know if you can see us.
Yeah, I can see you.
Oh, good. Well, we have a packed house, and one of the reasons is probably the tea that we're serving. But can you introduce, please, yourself and the company that you represent, or the cooperative that you represent?
Thank you very much. My name is Sudi Matara. I work as the head of Kenya Tea Development Agency Foundation, which is one of the subsidiaries of KTDA that looks at social impact, sustainable business, and climate change. Kenya Tea Development Agency is an organization that is owned by 720,000 farmers, and it offers holistic services that range from operations and management of the factories and the farmers, extension services, logistics, value addition, microinsurance, microfinance, and marketing, as well as social investments. And KTDA plays a very important role in improving the livelihoods of our tea farmers through promoting sustainable growth and prosperity of the smallholder tea subsector, which is about 60% of the total tea output. And one of the things I wanted to mention is that tea contributes about 2.4% of the GDP, 23% of the forex, and also 26% of the total exports, which KTDA contributes to about 70%. So these are very important subsector in the part of the Kenyan economy, and it's important to talk about climate change. And I'm excited to share and learn from each of the person today attending this particular session. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudi. Then maybe we'll go to the next panelist, Nam from SNV. Could you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. I hope this is working well. First of all, this is so amazing, and this perfect timing with the positive of environment here. My name is Nam. I'm from SNV, the Netherlands Development Organizations, and currently I'm working with the International Climate Initiative funded project, both of the mitigation and adaptation in Vietnam, which is, and I'm based in Central Highland, where they produce a lot of very good coffee, and we are working very closely with the farmer over here. So excited to be here today, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Nam. André from ETG, please introduce.
Yes, perfect. André van der Belt, Head Sustainability at the Export Trading Group, ETG. ETG is one of the largest agri-commodity traders in Africa. So we are present in 29 countries in Africa, work with between 3 to 4 million farmers in different supply chains. So we do a total of 7 million tons of produce, including coffee, cocoa, grains, pulses, cotton, but also fertilizers. So we are present in all of these countries, buy directly from farmers, And that is also where we have our opportunities and challenges to find solutions with farmers, see how we can improve their income, how we can find solutions around climate change, around environment. And that is what we do on a daily basis with all of our team on the ground.
Thank you, Andre. Martine,
Yeah.
floor is yours.
Thanks, and thanks for inviting us. Happy to be here. My name is Martine. I work for Rabobank, and Rabobank is a Dutch cooperative bank owned by farmers, and the largest food and agricultural bank in the world. And as part of the innovation team of Rabobank, we have set up a new proposition. It's not that new anymore, actually. I should stop saying it. We started 3 years ago with an initiative called Acorn, whereby the core idea is to stimulate more farmers to make a switch to agroforestry-based systems, and particularly focusing on smallholders. Because we believe that in a lot of cases, agroforestry can be very beneficial for farmers in terms of becoming more climate resilient, improving the quality of the soil, ensuring productivity levels stay stable. And we believe that compensating farmers for the carbon that they sequester helps. It might motivate farmers to maintain or even plant more trees, and it could also be an additional source of income that can be used to finance the cost that you have to make that switch to an agroforestry system. And what we did was to try to reduce the cost of what we call MRV, monitoring, reporting, valuation, by simplifying the process and also reducing the cost by using remote sensing data to, at a large scale, measure carbon sequestration. And on the other hand, increase transparency and traceability. And then we sell those credits either to the voluntary carbon market or work with value chain players that can use that same quantified certification in their value chains. And we're working with 200, I checked this morning, 243,000 farmers now. Really have an ambition to scale to 700,000 next year and 10 million by 2030, 2035. So large ambitions.
Thank you for that, Martine. And this is exactly the reason why I'm so happy that this panel is here. Because if you look at these 4 individuals and the companies they represent, we're looking at quick calculation more than 4 million farmers that we reach. And this is how FMO is trying to reach the smallholder farmers, because that's really a challenge. We cannot do it individually. We're not a retail bank. So we work together with these companies and organizations to actually reach the farmers and make sure that they have access to finance, but also access to expertise and so on. And Sudi, if I can start with you with a question. And by the way, there will be room for questions from the audience later on, but I would like to start with a few questions first. Sudi, I know that you as a cooperative, you finance your members as well. You pre-finance them. You help them with technical support. You're also on a way to net zero. In Kenya, the urgency is felt as well, so it's quite impressive. So there's a lot more I can say about KTDA, but I think the question I wanted to ask you, what do you see as the main climate change related challenges in the sector that you operate in? And what is preventing farmers from benefiting from development due to climate change? And what is the role of financing in the situation? It's a lot of questions in one, I'm afraid.
Thank you very much. As I said before, the tea industry makes an important contribution to the Kenyan economy. And this is a very important sector. And the Kenyan economy is highly dependent on the natural base. And thus is highly vulnerable to climate variability and change. The rising temperatures and changing rainfall patterns, because our business really depends on well-distributed rainfall across the year. But we've seen the rainfall patterns changing we've seen increased frequency of the same and the intensity of extreme weather events, such as droughts and flooding, but especially, droughts affect us because our productivity is dependent on rainfall. Therefore, the productivity of the farmers goes down. But due also to climate change, we have increased intensity and frequency of diseases and pests, which also push down the productivity of our farmers. We have declining soil quality. We look at the volatile agricultural markets as well. And we have also seen very low investment by both the public and private sector in agriculture. Therefore, for us, these are very important thing to look at when we are looking at climate change, because any further shocks will expose our household to more production and market shocks. So that's why it's important for us to really look at this particular area. And one of the things that we see as a problem, apart from the issues that I've raised above, is inadequate understanding of climate change by our farmers. 90% of our farmers own less than half an acre. And these are the bottom of the pyramid population that we're dealing with in this country. Yet you see through the aggregation model that we are able to bring them together, and we've built an ecosystem to support them. But still, we do have quite a number of challenges because these farmers, when you talk about climate change, for them, they live hand to mouth. And one of the things that they look at is what is best for them because of their state. And one of the things that we're trying to do is how do we support our farmers to become more resilient? Because if you look at the tea that is there, almost 37,000 acres of land is tea that is probably 50 years old. It's moribund, it's aged, and not high yielding. So that's one of the things that we want to look at. And also access to finance for them to go into the replanting program. Because remember, if you have to support these farmers to replace the old and moribund tea, we need resources because we are looking at almost 60 million US dollars for us to replace the old and moribund tea. So that's why we need climate financing, sometimes which is not there because it will be able to unlock the opportunities for our small holder farmers, which would in turn increase their productivity, profitability, and in a way, bring inclusivity when we are looking at the generational transition, especially focusing on our women and our youth. So for us, I think those are some of the things that we are trying to look at. And in terms of also the transparency, especially in the carbon trading, is something that has also affected even sometimes when we are talking about solutions to some of these. So I would stop there and probably when we go to the issues of where we see as making things better and unlock opportunities for farmers, I'll be able to articulate that. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Sudi. On the question of solutions for climate, I wanted to ask Nam, you work for SNV, an organization that is in the field, on the ground, working with farmers. Can you share some experience on what you can do to help farmers?
Yeah, that's an amazing question, and it's exactly what we do over the last 4 years. I feel fortunate that I based in the location that's very close with the farmer, and the SNV mission is quite for the farmer. So I think this is the the locally led solution where we are working directly with the farmer. Some of the story that I want to share is this is exactly what you mentioned earlier, that this is a journey how to building the trust and understanding the farmer in the field and what they normally do and what they can familiar with, and we can see what is the solution, this is the appropriate for them. So I think this is some of the slides showing the happy farmer where they producing the very good coffee like this. We have a strategy to partner with some of the village head who have really concrete on the ground and transform them into like a businessman and businesswoman. One of the story that I want to share this is a lady called Cacao who is producing the human coffees. They name the coffee of the hill where they growing coffee, and the risk in the past is they convert the forest into agriculture, but she really wants to change the pattern, and it is reduce the deforestation, and so growing back the trees, convert coffee mono to the agroforestry. And with this process, we for some 4 years in the past, she shared with me that I'm so passionate about the nature. I want to do this, I want to do that, but I don't have confidence. But by working with us, building capacity, building trust, and I think she's now transformed into very confident businesswoman. And this coffee is exported everywhere in the world. And she also becoming a champion in their village, and like influence the the community, and to have influence in the household and deciding what best for the household and the community. And this is where they transform the landscape. Secondly, on the finance issue, many of the farmers we are working with is often say, oh, we are lack of finance, lack of capital. It's not always the case. But I share with them, okay, let's do this first. Why don't you change your cultivation and to a practice? Because only change to the sustainable practice and at the farm level, and at the like changing the picking the red cherry only, and it's a double or triple amount of the household income by only changing the practice, and connect with the very good business like a small and medium company that offer premium price to the farmer. So at the household level, it's already increased the amount of money that allow them to remove the debt from the input dealer, and they can now start thinking about, okay, we can do business and we can have a good coffee, and also living harmonize with the nature, and also therefore reduce the pressure to the deforestation. Yeah.
Thank you, Nam. That's very inspiring and also very important. Vietnam is one of the biggest coffee producers in the world, and you need change agents like this. You need success stories, otherwise you will never reach change. So succeed and repeat. So we're always looking out for these changes and share that with the wider audience, and you already see it being repeated. So thank you, Nam, for sharing. I would like to move on, André, to you. You wanted to talk about the EU deforestation regulation. We talked about it before because you are a trader. You buy a lot of coffee and cocoa in Africa, and you bring it to the EU. So this is something that is on top of your mind, of course. But I would also like you to share what you are already doing on the ground, because as a company you take a lot of responsibility for your suppliers. You're not only buying, you do a lot more. So maybe we can start there and you can share a little bit more about that, what you're already doing, and then share the challenges that you face.
Yeah. Two questions which are quite big. Maybe let me start then with the EUDR, because I think that can then also explain the other questions that we currently undertake. So I'm not sure if everyone is aware what the EUDR is, but it is a new regulation that comes in where companies have to show that there's no deforestation in total of 6 commodities now, including cocoa and coffee, by next year, December, in Europe. So any shipment that we have to Europe in, what is it, close to a year from now, we have to show that there's no deforestation in that supply chain. Of course, that is bringing a lot of consequences. I think the biggest consequence for us, and this we also have seen with, for instance, SBTIs, is it changed our purchasing behavior. In the past, you had some flexibility to buy from different regions or from different suppliers. But if you start working with EUDR or SBTI on carbon solutions, you bring long-term investments to farmers and to the farmer ground. So you want to be sure that not every year you have to come with new investments, new systems, new risks in your supply chains. So it really enforces the sector to build long-term collaborations with farmers. And I think that is a very important and a very good thing, because it makes sure that we don't just have a one-time off investment of a project of 3 or 4 years. It is a partnership that we need to develop in our supply chains for the long term. So I think that is one important part. Second, obviously, there is now a level playing field. Myself, I have worked most of the years in the cocoa business, and what you've seen in the cocoa business is that, like, food brands really took the lead when it came to traceability systems and farmer support models, but the food brands are only 40-45% of the total market. The rest of the market is still very much segregated, scattered, private label, and this part of the business also we have to take along. So the moment that we have such regulations that apply for all players in the market, we can ensure that everyone will take those commitments to a next level. So I think that is, let's say, a very second important point to improve the conditions eventually to farmers. But it also comes with 2 risks that I would like to highlight. One is that we're going to spend too much on data collection. We know that data collection is extremely important, but at the same time it is also a risk because it can distract us from the investments needed at farm level. So we have to be careful that we don't spend only our money on knowing what is happening, but already today start investing in solutions as well. And we have been doing that for years. Obviously, there is a lot of support, I think, with what Sudi has already mentioned, and FAM as well, around farmer extension services, trying to increase value to farmers and supply chains, both for the commodity that they're producing, but also trying to find alternative revenue streams. So in our case, well, you've seen some of the cocoa juice that we brought with us. We are trying to turn some of the waste materials into a commercial product in supply chains with farmers. We try to work with different pricing schemes, so having higher prices to farmers, sometimes even instead of extension services, if we believe that extension services on itself are not doing the trick. And of course, also trying to increase their entrance to the carbon market, which Martina, I think, will be talking more about. But those activities eventually help us to get to that goal. And maybe the final part where we have to maybe be careful is that we don't see EUDR as the eventual goal, because it is a tool, it is one of the things that we need to do, but it's not the complete solution. If companies would only look into their supply chain, only into EUDR or the SBTIs, we're not going to stop deforestation, which is eventually the most important goal that we have. So we also have to look at landscape and make sure that we go beyond the areas where we operate as a company. And that is tricky because everyone is saying, like, okay, maybe you have to start with your own house first, get things in order, and then move on. But to be honest, if we wait for that and learn in the next 3-4 years how EDR works and then start investing at landscape, we will be too late. So definitely today we would encourage also our other stakeholder partners to look at landscape level, not only where we source, but also at community level, what other solutions can we find? How can we increase also forest in the area and not limit ourselves to just our company supply chain?
Clear. Thank you for that, André. And then I come to the final panel member, Martien. I'm really happy you're here because the financial sector is not very well known for its innovation power. It's a very formal sector. The word bureaucratic comes to mind. And a bank mixed with a cooperative model is even further a challenge. But still, you managed, and I'm really impressed because it started with an idea to see if you could have smallholder farmers benefit from carbon credits. And so I'm really happy that you're here to share more about that. But also, I would like to ask you a more general question as a representative of the financial commercial sector. What do you think the role is of banks in supporting climate resilient and inclusive value chains?
Yeah, I think we have an important role to play as banks, as commercial banks, as any bank. And I think, let's be honest, it has become quite apparent also in the Netherlands, where there was a lot of criticism on Rabobank for its role in the food and agricultural sector. And I think that's fair. Banks have a very important role to play, directly and indirectly, in food and agricultural sectors, particularly the Rabobank that has such a focus on it. So there's a responsibility that comes with that. And that is exactly the reason why we started within the innovation department to say we have a role to play to support those smallholder farmers because they're part of our value chains, not always directly, sometimes indirectly. And we know that if we want to look at the food and agricultural sector, we need to look at climate resilience, we need to look at land degradation, we need to look at food security and improvement. So I think there's no way around it. But perhaps to that other question, being part of a bank and then innovating is not always easy. I've been saying it a lot here within COP. I think a lot of people look at us because we're part of a bank. So I think it might also come with some trust because we're heavily regulated. But in all honesty, it gives us sometimes a little bit of headache because it's not so easy to innovate there. There's a very strong compliance, legal and risk department that looks at us to see if we do it right. But I think, therefore, we are quite strict on a lot of things that is required, particularly in the voluntary carbon market, where people are looking at with a bit of skepticism.
Understood. Thank you. Maybe now is a good time to check if there's anybody in the audience who has a question. Yes.
Not sure I could scream. Thank you so much. I'm Priya. I'm a student. I'm doing my master's in agriculture, food and environment. And I'm really curious about agroforestry. Given that it's very spatial and it could be temporal, I'm assuming the results or the outcomes vary place to place. And so, looking at that as one large solution, I'm curious if, Rabobank has considered sort of diversifying practices, or has there been conversations in terms of, say, investments, not just from an outcome-based, perspective, but also practices-based perspective? That's one. And also just looking at, perhaps other initiatives beyond agroforestry, if there are any that's being considered, I'm curious to know about that. Thank you.
I'm thinking, so I'm part of Acorn, so I'll try to answer a little bit on behalf of Rabobank, but the bank is quite big, so I might not have the full overview. But yeah, I think we're looking at quite a lot of things. Also from an innovation perspective, the Acorn initiative is part of the Rabo Carbon Bank, where we're looking at different carbon propositions, and that is then not necessarily, and that is the case for Acorn, but for the other initiatives as well. When we talk about carbon initiatives, it's not to say we really want to work in the carbon market. It's more that we think we need to be more diligent about climate smart agriculture, and then we need to look at carbon. So that's with smallholders. We think agroforestry can be quite impactful. When we look at larger scale farmers, we look at other approaches, such as no-tillage and helping larger farmers with more climate smart agriculture and seeing whether the carbon market can play a role there or not. We're also looking at supporting reforestation, larger scale. So there's different things that we're doing. And then I think broader within the Rabobank, yeah, there's a lot of conversations about diversifying the impact of the risk, the climate risk, and to have that conversation with the companies that we're financing. But in the end, we also need to be realistic, right? Although we have a very important role to play, we're not always in the driving seat. So it's sometimes also having conversations rather than dictating. In the end, we're not the one making the decisions for certain companies, but we can choose who to finance and how to stimulate and incentivize certain things, and we try to do that more and more.
Yes, you're on this topic? Yeah,
Yeah, maybe like if you also come from a question like, do we know the best practices around agroforestry, and like, is it getting the benefit to the farmer? I think the different sectors have quite a lot of years of experience now with different models, like what kind of species, how the model can look with different type of farmers, light shade systems that you can do with smallholder farmers that are sometimes difficult to give a lot of support on a day-to-day basis. More dense system with commercial farming where you can do high intensive operations. I think a lot of work has been done on the above ground, so the type of agroforestry, also with reforestation, but there's still a lot of work to do on the below ground, because what we have seen, especially with agroforestry so far, is that the below ground response, not only in carbon but also in terms of regeneration, restoring soils, can be very different. And it's very expensive with smallholder farmers to come to tailored solutions for different type of soils. But at the same time, with the high unpredictability that we now have with changing rainfall patterns, it's definitely something where we have to go to get optimized systems with farmers. I mean, today, if you want to provide inputs to a farmer, for instance, or even solutions around soil erosion, you need to know what the soil consists of. And that is an area where I feel we are not there yet, and where we hope that more companies and organizations, stakeholders will follow, because that is where the stakeholder today, the smallholder farmer, has the highest risk.
A question. I think this gentleman first.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right. My name is Abubakar Kruma. I'm a youth and climate justice activist from Liberia, and I'm also the founder and executive director of the Climate Advocate Association that works around the Sustainable Development Goal 2, 12, and 13. We're currently working on rice production on about 10 acres of land in Liberia, and that is why I got this topic so interesting to me. So my question, like the brother said from Kenya, he actually spoke well. The issue about farmers right now across Africa, it is about the understanding of climate change. Majority of the local farmers do not understand what is climate change. So I want to firstly ask the first question, what are your connections, right? Do you have collaboration in Liberia, and how are you doing to decentralize support to local organizations, community-based groups that are around the Global South? Thank you.
This is a question to NAM, to SMV, or to Sudi? Yes, yes. Nam, that's your question.
Yeah, I think it's. I heard about the global south, so maybe it is relevant to me as well. And we have a lot of offer, and this because what we working on the ground level, and we see a lot of innovation and solution is coming up, and what we do is come on across is setting up a partnership. This is called the 4Ps. This is a public-private producer partnership, and it's one of the slides. Is creating a lot of ecosystem that allowing us to have a very holistic approach on the landscape level, and one of the thing that is bringing these stakeholders together, and I think that some of the answer related to yours as well, because when we have a dialogue with the government, and they really have some of the government priority to the farmer, and there's a public funding to development process, and also company also really want to have on board and how to working with the farmer and the government to have like really good supply chain, and also having like the minimize the risk. For example, like a deforestation-free coffee, and they really want their farmer into the value chain that have a long-term bond with them, so that they have a very strong revenue stream. And the farmer, what we really work really well is bringing the voice of the farmer group and farmer cooperative into the table, and equally in the dialogue and the meeting with the quarterly, or all of the stakeholder working together, and this is offer a lot of solution, and continuously show the issue that we own way one. Also talking about the bank and the local bank, the role of the local bank. So we also working with like a credit scoring with the farmer, and the issue here is that traditional bank don't lend the money into the farmer that don't have land title, but via the dialogue with the local bank and working with the farmer, they go with us to carry out the credit scoring with the farmer. So they really have like okay, we take a little bit risk to give a loan to the farmer into the value chain that have a strong connection with the company. So okay, so this is the new type of lending, and I think this is one of the innovation that is slowly convert the traditional bank into the greener bank. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Nam. But maybe Sudi, it's also an interesting question for you, actually. I mean, you're a community in itself, you're a bank, you're a lot of things in one. So how do you go about awareness on climate change, and what kind of solutions do you offer?
Okay. Thank you very much. For KTDA, I think one of the things that we've realized that it's important. That's why we've decided to look at the opportunities that will minimize the negative impact that our corporations have on the environment and the communities, and in also the economies where we operate. And that's why, together with FMO, you've supported us, and we've been able to look at the climate risk map of KTD as a group on all the services that we offer. And we realize that KTDA's infrastructure and ecosystem as an aggregator, because we're using the aggregation model for 700,000 farmers, gives us a unique disposition in transforming the lives and livelihoods of our farmers. So that's why, when we look at some of the things that we do at the farmer level, we are looking at capacity building. And we have what we call the farmer field schools, where the farmers themselves form into groups, and we're able to help them, think through the agronomy side and also the special subjects. But at the same time, the second thing is around, how we've come up with the innovative financing options under the microfinance, where we are able to fund farmers on various issues, including, addressing issues around climate and diversification. And basically, we do not ask for collateral. We do give farmers credit through, it's called Greenland Feather. And what we do is that it's equated to what they produce. So their collateral is the green leaf that they produce at their farms, and now that becomes their guarantee. And as we move forward, I think we want to look at non-T lending as well, so that then we can be able, to lend this money. But always the secret is giving these farmers the loans at affordable rates, because that has been one of the things that, like for us, we've been doing, we started with a single digit interest rate, but now, we can't peg our interest rates below what the central bank rate gives. But we try as much as possible to cushion our farmers by making sure that the loans that we provide are affordable at that level.
Thank you, Sudi. Really interesting, and also makes the case for uniting, right? If you unite as farmers, as smallholder farmers, in a cooperative or in another way, you can be really a big change agent. You had a question?
Thank you, my panel. I'm Michael from Uganda. I've grown up in the value coffee chain. It actually paid for my education, coffee. And I've also been a farmer, small-time farmer, back in the village before I moved to the city. But my only local knowledge and practical knowledge is that the relationship between the farmers and their activities and nature and climate impact is largely unequal economic relations. Because why the farmer puts pressure on the land is because they have been tilling the land and producing for subsistence, but as well as commercial reasons. But at the end of the day, when they compare what they get from other activities such as trading, technology, it becomes very unviable and they get frustrated. But because they must sustain their families, what they do is they go back the land and cut down the trees and the bushes to produce more. It's an issue of productivity. But even when they produce more, they get less. So my question is, I'm aware of the Dutch activities back in Uganda with farming, cocoa, whatever. How do we empower the farmers genuinely and equitably? However much you bring in the technology linkage to increase the productivity, in as long as the farmer is not getting the real commercial value sustainably, they will still attack the land, they will still attack the forests and cut them down under the guise of increasing productivity, probably for home consumption. But in terms of growth and prosperity, farming remains a big challenge back home. Thank you.
Fair point. I think one of the biggest causes of deforestation is poverty, basically. And the way we operate is by stimulating economic development, companies to grow and prosper, this should create good jobs, I should say, not any jobs. as well, and that should trickle down, and in the end, one day alleviate poverty. But that's a dream, of course, that is still quite far away. But maybe, Andre, you have something to say about that, because you play an important role in that as well as a Pan-African company.
I think eventually poverty is like the root cause of everything when we try to develop new sustainable, like long-term solutions, right? I mean, if the farmer is not having profitable income, if he or she is not interested to farm in the future, then the system stops. So getting a profitable model with a farmer is important in any cases. I have to say that we see different regions and really have to see per region what the interest of a farmer can be. Because indeed, in some wet areas, farmers have no interest today to keep the trees. Sometimes trees can bring more diseases, and they need to find, we need to find other incentives to get them along. Can be a payment for ecosystem services, so that we give them more financial support to keep certain trees, to compensate for maybe some other losses that they're making. So in those areas, we try to find other areas of income. Access to carbon market, for instance, can be a solution as well. But then the big question is, at what price? And is it truly sufficient to compensate? In other regions, we do see that farmers are already having issues by not having those trees. So if we see, for instance, in West Africa, the northern belt of cocoa, farmers are very happy to plant more trees there now, more shade trees, because they are facing a lot of issues with yields coming down, droughts. So there we see, from a commercial incentive already, farmers being very actively involved and willing to plant trees. But then the question is, how do you get them the right species? How can you give them that support? How can you give them some extra support to have a high survival rate of those trees? So it's different models in different regions, but for sure the profitability is number one, otherwise it will never work.
Thank you very much. I'm Christopher from Tanzania, and I would like to ask one question. With regard to the value chains, whether cocoa, coffee, or tea, of course, the strength of any value chain depends on how also competitive the players are. And of course, for farmers to be able to deliver, financing is also key. We have talked about climate finance, but basically for farmers, of course, at most of the time you find they are being served by commercial banks, but being able to give them concessional rates, it's a little bit difficult. So most of them are financed under commercial terms. So from the climate finance, are we able to from experience maybe, are we able to be able to access cheaper funds so that in the climate financing, especially in the room that we are taking into consideration farmers, they can be able to access affordable funds? Because for banks, if you acquire deposits at a commercial rate, lending at a concessional rate is a bit a mismatch. So maybe from experience, what should be done to use the climate fund to be able to lend to farmers at concessional rates?
Yeah, my name is Samreen Khan Khori and I am from Pakistan. I belong to a farmer community, and I belongs to an indigenous women community as well. So referring to the question of climate financing, you know, the banking system itself is a very complex kind of thing. Like farmer could not get easily the funds from the bank. So is there any possibility to make easy the process by engaging development organization or networks into this process, so that we can connect the farmers community and to the bank? You know, in Pakistan, like getting loan from the bank, in commercial bank, it's impossible. Instead, if you know that Pakistan is the one of the vulnerable country, fifth vulnerable country of climate change. So we have the question that how can we connect and how we easy to access the bank like European Union, investment bank, the huge entity. So this is my thing.
I'll take that. Because this is the question I get the whole week, and rightfully so. It's actually two questions. How do you access, as farmer, how do you get access to finance, and how is it affordable? These questions are related to the lack of a proper financial system in your countries, unfortunately. So what we try to do is establish banks, or support banks to create a proper financial system that has access to everybody, including farmers. So one of the tools we use is a Nazira program, which is funded by or supported by the EU, to give a guarantee to local banks so that they are stimulated to take risks on smaller entities and on agriculture. Because you have to realize agriculture was never a sector where banks accept Rabo, and we have to commend them for that, and they're AAA rated, so they're doing something, well, not anymore, no. So used to be AAA rated, but still very well performing financially. There's not a lot of banks who are keen to finance the agricultural sector. And with climate change, that is not going any better, unfortunately. So what we want to do is try to de-risk the banks, to stimulate them to take more risk in the agricultural sector, and then also to support smallholder farms. But we cannot do it alone. We need local governments as well. This needs to be a public-private partnership, because if the local governments don't stimulate, don't subsidize the interest rates, it doesn't cover the cost of the banks, and it will not happen. So you really need the public sector as well locally to support. For instance, what you see in India and also in Kenya is that the government is really stimulating banks to take more, to increase the size of the portfolio in agricultural sector. This is really a very strong incentive. And in Bangladesh as well. Now, there you go. So that helps because you need to push the banks sometimes. Oh, no, yeah, you have your own.
Hello? Yeah, it works. Perhaps to add, so when we started Acorn, the idea was that by stimulating the first thing is we think agroforestry as a system is very beneficial, but the idea has been generating an additional income stream might also help to get access to additional financing to pre-finance the cost of making a switch to agroforestry. So we perhaps a little bit naively thought, if there's access to that additional income stream and it's a relatively substantial income stream that flows back to the farmers, there will be more access to finance. But what we saw, unfortunately, is that that's still quite tricky. And still quite a lot of organizations lack that access to finance to support their farmers to plant the trees. And that is why we have decided to set up a dedicated smallholder agroforestry financing facility to do exactly that, to pre-finance the cost of implementation of agroforestry, whereby we use that carbon income as a source of repayment. And it's not, we're not ready yet, but we're working quite hard to get that facility up and running, and we hope that we can collaborate there with FMO, with some others. USAID already committed to a first loss tranche to really de-risk the whole facility a little bit more so that we can indeed lend against affordable or concessional rates. And Rabobank has committed in principle to provide a 50 million investment into that facility. So we hope that in the course of 2024, we close a 100 million facility to do that and to make sure that we use the climate income as a source of repayment for carbon investments.
Yeah, and I don't know if Sudi is still there. You're not on screen. No longer online?
I'm here.
Yes, oh, we can hear you, Sudi. We don't see, yes, and we have a visual as well. Because this is another, I mean, we talked about banks, access to finance via banks, but Sudi already mentioned Greenland Fedda. That's, you are financing your members, right? Through Greenland Fedda. Maybe you can share a little bit more about that.
Yes, we do finance our farmers, and And the way we have done it to make it more accessible to the different segments is we have graduated interest rates depending on the number of bushes, which is we also equate to the productivity. Because then, the smaller the farmer, it means, they're not able to afford to access finances. So for us, we are able to help them by graduating, the finances that we give them, the loans that we give them. But also what we have done is that we do recover some of these loans through some innovative ways, such as when we are doing the second payment, because we give them the first payment, which is an initial payment once they deliver their green leaf. But then after that, at the end of the year, there's second payment, which we call more of bonus. So we are able to then deduct, because then you want to remove the burden from the farmer, where you deduct money monthly towards the loan. And we ensure that, the interest rates at minimum, because one of the things that the KTDA ecosystem has built to address is basically improve the livelihoods of our farmers. So the graduation, and depending on the amount of bushes that you have, the amount of productivity that you have as a farmer, but secondly, also looking at the times when at least they're getting a big amount of money, that's the time you're able to deduct, so that then you can let the farmers be able to meet some of their obligations on daily basis.
Okay, so I think that gives you at least some idea of how others have solved it. And if there are no further questions, I think I would like to, is anybody here who wants to say something that you haven't been able to share? If not, then I would like to wrap it up. And I'm really happy that we could end this, or almost end this COP with a panel that gives me a lot of hope, to be honest. I mean, we hear a lot about climate change, of course, and the disaster that is coming our way, but at the same time, there's also a lot of initiatives and companies and organizations who are making a difference, and making a big difference, not for 10 farmers, but really for more than 4 million farmers, as we understand. So I'm really happy that you're here and shared your story. I'm also happy with the audience, who was very active with the questions. I'm sure it was the good coffee that made you all very assertive. And I invite you to, for more coffee and juices, but also to have a look at the coffee that was brought by Nam from Vietnam, the beautiful, inspiring story of the coffee producer. Thank you very much for your attention and being here. And thank you to panel. And Sudi.